Good morning, and thank you for joining Converged Technology Group and AlertLogic's webinar entitled Managed Detection and Response, Critical Elements of Your Cybersecurity Journey. Our panel today from Converged Technology Group is Leo Galetta, President and CEO, Scott Nitty, Director of Technology Solutions, and from AlertLogic, Bharath Vasudevan, Vice President of Product and Technical Marketing. Before we get started, just a few items to review. This webinar is being recorded and your mics have automatically been set to silent mode. We encourage you to ask questions and they can be submitted via the Q&A found in the right corner of your screen. We'll answer as many questions as possible during and at the conclusion of the webinar. And finally, your feedback is very important to us, so please don't forget to complete the short survey that will be emailed to you following the webinar and receive your $25 Grubhub gift card. Now, I'd like to hand it off to our first presenter, Leo Galetta, to begin. Leo.
All right, thank you, Anthony. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the WebEx that we have here today. I'm very excited to share an action-packed agenda over the course of the next hour. I have quite a bit of information to share with you with some leading subject matter experts, so we're very excited about hosting this event. From an agenda perspective, we're just working our way through right now some introductions. I'm going to give a little bit of background on Bharath and Scott and myself. I'll go through some opening statements just to share some insights into some of the things that we're seeing in the industry right now, across our existing customers, new prospect engagement, overall industry trends as it pertains to cybersecurity, and just the growing risk that we're seeing within small, medium enterprises, as well as large organizations. So there's just quite a bit happening in the world today as we exist. I'm going to transition over to Bharath to go through managing risk with AlertLogic, MDR, Managed Detection and Response. Bharath is going to then transition over to Scott Nitty, who's going to go through our Better Together framework. So we have a strategic partnership with AlertLogic. Some folks on the calls are existing customers, some folks meeting us for the first time, but we have quite a bit to offer there. And then we'll wrap up towards the end with a little bit of overview of Converged Technology Group, a review and wrap up, and next steps. So I'd encourage folks, if you have questions along the way, you can enter that in the Q&A panel, as Anthony had mentioned. We'll do our best, perhaps, to answer those questions as we go, but we're certainly going to go back at the end to see if there's anything that might have been asked that we hadn't answered. So let's just jump into the introductions real quick. So we have Bharath Vasudevan on the call with us from AlertLogic. He is the VP of Product and Technical Marketing over at AlertLogic. His responsibilities include field enablement, strategic marketing, and product and service at a solution level, including all the product launches and supporting campaigns. So quite a scope of responsibility within AlertLogic. And Bharath, just wanted to thank you for all the work that you put into the preparedness for today, the partnership, and the information that you're going to be sharing with some of our existing customers, as well as folks that are checking us out for the first time. So thank you for that. It's important for the group to know that prior to joining AlertLogic, Bharath has held several leadership roles in ForcePoint, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Dell Technologies, across engineering, product management, business development, and has over 20 years of industry experience. One of the most notables for me was having received 13 patents from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, so covering both hardware and software design. So that was quite unique and quite an accomplishment, Bharath. And and Bharath also holds a bachelor's degree and Master of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Carnegie Mellon. So an awesome industry expert, thought leader, quite a bit of experience that we are very excited to partner with and share in terms of Bharath's experience. In addition to Bharath, we have Scott Nitty, who's our Director of Technology Solutions. So some folks on the call know Scott, some folks meeting him for the first time. He and his team are subject matter experts across all the practice areas that we have within Converge. So we think in terms of enterprise networking, collaboration, data center, cloud, and then security solutions. And the focus today is predominantly around our security capabilities. His team, for the most part, designs technology solutions which drive business outcomes. So in our mind, we work with our customers to determine business technical financial requirements. We think in terms of increased revenue and productivity, reduced costs, and mitigated risk. And ultimately, that translates to a set of technology recommendations to enable that organization to achieve what they're looking to accomplish from a business perspective. So those recommendations include professional services for implementation, certainly technology, as well as co-managed IT support services. So the vast majority of our customers have existing IT staffs. They're faced with new and growing challenges as it pertains to cybersecurity. The folks that we work with have quite a bit of deep subject matter expertise within our customers, but what they're seeing is that some of the challenges of today, which were different than the challenges of the past, go beyond what they might be able to do in-house. So our approach to the market has been around co-managed support, acting as an extension of an existing IT support team, and we've been doing that for over a decade. Prior to joining Converged Technology Group, Scott had various engineering, design engineering and implementation engineering roles across a number of regional and global IT providers, so a very long track record of experience in making recommendations for customers. And that experience has spanned across 2 decades, over 20 years. Scott also has some of the highest levels of industry certifications. And then you have myself, President and CEO, co-founder of Converged Technology Group. My objective as a co-founder was to recruit, develop, and retain some world-class experts in the design, implementation, ongoing support of solutions that drive business outcomes for our customers. Quite often, I'm also an active participant as what we call an executive sponsor in strategic business transformation initiatives within key accounts. So there's quite a bit of involvement that I have as well, and that's one of my favorite things to do, engaging with existing customers. And just a little bit of my background, just knowing that I held various leadership positions at a number of regional and global systems integrators. I'd worked at Cisco Systems at one point, Advanced Network Services. We supported some of the most diverse, complex global infrastructures in the world. So don't miss all the days, nights, weekends, holidays that I spent troubleshooting a good number of issues with a very capable team. But just know that my background is rooted in engineering. I'm currently an active CCIE, as well as hold a number of other IT industry certifications as well. So, and graduated from Stony Brook here in Long Island. So that's just a little bit on our background and who's on the call. And really the impetus for us to host this event today is a result of what we had seen quite a bit more often in the last year as compared to previous years. And I think that as IT experts, the vast majority of folks that are on this call, we recognize that cybercrime is a big business. There's bad actors all around the world. The rate in which I'm having conversations around business email compromise, data exfiltration, ransomware is increasing quarter over quarter, and we don't anticipate that that's going away anytime soon. When you look at some of the data out there around internet-connected systems being attacked every 39 seconds on average, with over 2,250 attacks per day, that is significant. When we work our way through this conversation, Bharat is going to introduce us to concepts called drift and dwell time. In many instances, we had a customer that had for some period of time was really hesitant about making investments in some of their technology as it pertains to cybersecurity until one Friday afternoon where they were subject to ransomware. And at that moment, we were able to help facilitate an interaction where ultimately a incident response company had gotten engaged. And looking back at the forensics, we had seen that organization had been compromised multiple times over the course of 4 years prior. The bad actors came in and was actually accessing the backup data. And some of the conversations that we had prior now seem to resonate, but unfortunately as a result of an unfortunate reality, right? So walked into a number of different conversations where we're making these recommendations. It seems like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. An organization has an event. It prompts us to move into action. We then find out, we do the forensics, and realize that, hey, maybe some of the recommendations we had made along the way might have helped prevent that scenario. So just know that, the scope of what we're seeing, and in many instances we can't get into the specific company or the details, is very, very real. Cloud adoption and hybrid cloud infrastructures are increasingly commonplace in the customer environments we support today. We recognize that you have on-prem assets, you have public cloud assets. In many cases, there's a combination of both, and that we have to approach cloud security much differently than we approach on-prem security. And that the security professionals that we work with are finding that the traditional point products for on-prem security may not be adequate for public cloud or hybrid cloud as well. So there's a revisitation of that conversation and a lot of the customer engagements that we have. So, part of the approach that we see with customers are increased awareness, increased amount of log review. It's periodic in nature, but what we're seeing is that is becoming less and less adequate. And what we really need to move towards is a posture of continuous monitoring and support 24/7, 365. And most of the organizations we work with don't necessarily have the capacity to invest that internally. So the thought process is moving from something that may be a bit ad hoc, maybe a bit operational. Some of our customers have network operations centers, some of them have small SOCs and things like that, security operations centers. But when you really think about what's required to invest from a company perspective, in order to be able to provide that 24/7 vigilance, you really have to think about the staffing 24/7, not having single points of failure, because we know that our cybersecurity is only as strong as our weakest link. We have to understand that the recruitment, development, retention of talent is very difficult. We actually have negative unemployment right now for cybersecurity experts, so it's very difficult. You have to take into the cost of not only the staff, but also the platforms. And quite often in a small to medium enterprise, we see that the total annual cost can be between $1.5 and $2 million. And to do that internally, in many cases, is very unattainable. So there's another approach. The thought is, and one of the strategies that we're seeing an increased uptake on is a partner approach. And from our perspective, the strategic partnership that we have with AlertLogic with Converged Technology Group is one that you can give serious consideration. So, folks, I want to thank you again. I'm gonna hand it off to Barack now to take us through the AlertLogic update. We'll be looking at the Q&A panel if you have some questions along the way. Scott will take us through our Better Together story, and then it will be back to me for final review and wrap up. So, guys, thank you very much. Barack, I'm going to hand the ball off to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Leo. So as Leo indicated, right, the topic we're really talking about is managing risk. That's really the challenge that we're all set out to. And when we were talking prior to the session, the cross section of industries that are showing up here, it's a testament to the fact that what we're talking about spans industries. It's not a financial services solution. It's not an automotive solution. It's not a manufacturing thing. It's every industry is fighting this challenge. Now, quick introduction. What does AlertLogic do? Primarily, we are here to deliver peace of mind. I mean, that's really our primary objective. And we do it via delivery of managed detection and response. Part of this is the combination of having our own proprietary tech, which I'll talk about a little bit, but then also combining that with threat intel, combining that with our security experts to deliver things like SaaS security. It's more about visibility. It's more about detection. And again, it's not whether you're on-prem, whether you're in the cloud, you're an agile business. Everybody's on a different phase of their digital transformation. I know it's an overused term, but it really fits for everybody. Some of you here are cloud native, have been in the cloud since the beginning. Others of you are, moving on-prem to the cloud. I meet numerous CIOs that when they come into role, their job, their purpose for being hired is to accelerate movement to the cloud. And it's for all the traditional IT things you need about, being more agile, going faster, and delivering revenue quicker. I mean, that's really what this is about. So AlertLogic, we've been doing this for quite a while. In fact, we call it MDR today. It's nice that the industry now has a term for what we did. For the longest time, we were a tool vendor that had services or a services company that had their own tool. And now as MDR comes together, that's really what it coalesced into what we do. We've been around for almost 20 years now, over 4,000 customers. We're in the US, in EMEA, and really we've helped to really define the space. Now, let's talk about what you guys are going through, right? I touched on it earlier. There's this idea of digital transformation. Leo touched on it, the negative unemployment. You can't hire people. You can't even keep people. And in some of the statistics that he shared, it's 5 people to staff a 9x5. Then you need 3 shifts. That gets you to 15. And then, backup coverage gets you to around 20. And that's just people. Now you got to keep them happy. I hear stories of cybersecurity engineers being in such demand, they move to another company because they offer pet insurance, right? That's enough to get them to move. So, to not only hire, retain staff, and then, keep them up to speed. We're getting back to where, I believe Reinforce is going to be happening again from AWS, and they're going to do it in person as well as online. So people are going to start going back to conferences. That's more cost. And it's things that you're going to have to do to keep your employees happy, especially the ones that are in demand. Tool complexity. Oh my goodness. Just go ask yourselves how many tools are in your tool stack, and do you want more or do you want less? And with all of that, do you feel that you're fully protected? We can talk about things like Hafnium that happened in the last month. I don't know how many of you are still running on-prem Microsoft Exchange. I know Microsoft has been actively moving people to O365 and Exchange Online, but I can tell you, even within our customer base, we found north of 100 customers still running Exchange on-prem. And as soon as, funny story about Hafnium, we actually found it before it was disclosed. Didn't know what it was, but we found it, and we informed those clients that were running that and were exposed because we saw malicious communication to a known blacklisted command and control server. So we found the 0-day, not intending to, but we did, and we reached out to everybody who was in a similar situation. But even today, over 100 customers running on-prem Microsoft Exchange. And I mean, this is just tip of the iceberg, right? We hear about breaches every single week, and you guys in your jobs, you would rather it be not you, one of your competitors, or the reputational harm that comes from these things are terrible. So how can you avoid that? Now, things you can do, right? We talked about 24/7 expertise. I'm sure you guys all have unlimited security budgets, right? Whatever programs you want, everything just comes above the line because, hey, there could be a breach. And I wish it were that easy, but it really isn't. And honestly, as much money as you put into it, you're still never going to be able to claim 100% secure. So what do you have to deal with? Right? I addressed it, talked about it a little bit earlier. The drive to get to the cloud. Everybody can set up a nice perimeter, but what happens when somebody gets in? How are you going to detect it? How are you going to respond to it? Compliance. I mean, it's the least cool thing to talk about, and yet it's the thing that's top of mind for everybody. How can we make that easier? Traditional EDR solutions by themselves don't give you all the tools that you need to be compliant. So, there's other considerations you're going to need to worry about. And ultimately, the goal here is understanding risk. If you understand your exposure, you understand your risk, you're going to be in the best position to do something about it. Now, if you want to address it, what are some things you have to consider? You have to do a few things. You have to collect, you have to analyze, and you have to inform. And as you're doing that, you have to make some decisions, right? Do you want to get separate tools for each deployment scenario? There is no shortage of cloud security tool vendors. Some specialize in AWS, some specialize in Azure. Some don't even do on-prem. So these are some decisions you're going to need to make. And again, it's the proliferation of your tool stack. How much do you want to deal with? Now, once you have all those tools, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to aggregate all of that yourself? Or, what do you do with logs? Do you have a SIM? What about when the SIM is just a collection of logs? Then what? How are you going to do analysis on that? And lastly, okay, now I've collected all my information. I've done some analysis on it. Now I have to do something with that. Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to have somebody who's got a hand on the steering wheel at 3 in the morning, or when everyone's at the Memorial Day barbecue having a great day? What's going to happen then? Or are you going to just, let somebody else do that for you? There, again, as much as I talked about tool vendors, there's an equal number of managed security vendors that are going to help you do that. But if you put all that together and you want to really hit the easy button, that's what we call turnkey MDR. These are choices everyone's going to need to make. You're going to have to figure out where you have the money, where you can make those investments. But ultimately, this is a type of decision-making process that you're going to need to arrive at. Now, if I look at this and I say, well, what happens if I get it wrong, or what happens if I get it right? Well, Leo had alluded to a conversation around drift and dwell. I think you all can agree with this. Ever since virtualization happened 15 years ago, environments aren't static. I don't deploy a physical server in a rack, rack force, slot 10 and 11 for my 2U server, and that's going to be its lifespan forever. It doesn't happen anymore. Everything has become nimble. Virtualization lets you move things. VLAN lets you move things across sites. Now we talk about hybrid cloud, things in the cloud, serverless environments, whether we're talking about containers, Docker, Kubernetes, or even, serverless things like Lambda and Fargate. The granularity around microservices has really grown. And really what that means is that no environment is static anymore. Everything changes. You could even come back and look in your own environments and say, look, I took stock on Monday morning or Monday at 5 a.m. before anybody really started coming into the office. How much of that has drifted between then and now? So it's a reality that we're all facing right now. There's tons of research out there. Leo had talked about every 39 seconds, there's an attack happening. Well, guess what? Even if there's an attack not happening, you are constantly getting scanned. The bad guys are doing recon right now on every single one of our assets, looking for an exploit. Our SOC, some of the best practice recommendations that we give to our clients is don't just change the broadcast on your server. Don't let it tell the internet it's an Apache server, because the moment it does, the bad guys know what to do. They've earmarked that for whenever there's an Apache exploit to come back to that. So all you have to do is just change how it broadcasts and the scans will stop. So it's just it's a small little nugget, but the impact that it can have to your broader environment is pretty amazing. And the last thing, right? I think, again, some of the statistics, 200 days to discover, 300 days to remediate. 2/3 of these things go undiscovered for months. So this is your reality, right? This is what you're facing. Now, for us, from an Alert Logic standpoint, we believe that focusing both on a pre-breach environment and a post-breach environment is critical. There's an analogy that they left a boom, right a boom. It's a military term for when they storm buildings. So left a boom is pre-breach. It's when you're doing, we want to basically reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. And this is things like patching hygiene. It's how do I, using a home as an analogy, lock your doors, turn off the lights, lock your windows before you go to bed. If you do that, there's a better possibility that even if someone comes and jiggles the lock, they can't get in and they'll go away. So we want to reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. And again, right, this goes back to the recommendation of changing your web servers, how they broadcast. I can thwart the attack at the recon phase. So across the bottom, it's the traditional cyber kill chain. The earlier you catch something, the less expensive it's going to be to fix it. I think that, that's in anything, right? Whether we're talking about, bringing a service to market, whether you're talking about in your production time frame, if you find something in final staging, or if you find it early on, where's it going to be cost less to fix it? So again, I want to reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. I can't prevent it. I know that. This is the world we live in. But if I address threats, I've got good patching hygiene. Like when the hafnium exposure happened, it was March 2nd. There's like, hey guys, you need to go patch this stat. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, we were still catching things on unpatched systems. So we can't force anybody to do that. That's something it's an industry challenge, right? I mean, a lot of times, you may not have the authority to do it, or it's a mission critical system and you have to wait for scheduled downtime. There's all these considerations. So knowing that pre-breach can't always happen, what are you going to do? I need to catch this thing before it causes real damage. And that's the post-breach side of this. Reduce the impact of a successful attack. And the way you do that is by rapid detection. It's remediation guidance. It's, hey, we've seen something that you may not see. If you go look at some of the most prolific breaches that we've had in the industry, the prevention tools caught it, but the prevention tools were set up in audit mode. They weren't set up in blocking mode. So now you've got this alert that's sitting in a log somewhere that says something awful is going on, but you had nobody to parse through it. You had nobody to look at it, correlate it with other incidents, increase its severity, and act on it. And that's really what we can do for you. So we talked about drift and dwell. And if you just take the same frame, in a pre-breach environment, you're dealing with drift. In a post-breach environment, you're dealing with dwell. What you want to do is you want to sort of minimize drift and definitely minimize dwell. I think everybody can agree the longer something stays hidden in your environment, the more exposed you are to the negative effects of it. That one's not rocket science, but I do believe that's how we deal with. I mean that's our reality. So, I've got some 2019 stats here, but the number hasn't gone down, right? The vulnerabilities in software are being exposed on the regular. Whether it's a remote code execution vulnerability, uh, whether it's things. I mean, they just happen, right? And if you look at what's getting exploited, public records, private records, PCI. I mean, these are all regulatory nightmares waiting to happen. Uh, and this isn't even talking about things like ransomware getting deployed. We look at the number of credentials being sold. I mean, this is the dark web activity that's happening. And I look at this even sometimes in my own company, right? I have to go back. I had somebody leave my team. Well, it looked like their credentials were still active even after they were exited from the system. So it's even things like that. And mind you, I'm not too worried about some of the people that are leaving my team being true bad actors. But again, if it's happening here, where else could it be happening? We also talk about things changing over time. That server that you deployed on-prem 3 months ago, is it still doing the exact same thing? Are the workloads running on it the same? I don't know, maybe. So really, it's all of these things as configurations change over time, as new things get discovered. Really, the exposure, your exposure window grows by you doing nothing. And I think that's the part to take away from it. If you stand still, you're getting less secure. Now, if I look at just what are the impacts here, right? How many of these victims could have been prevented with a patch? And again, this 34% were aware. I can tell you with Hafnium, this was the case. We let people know, and then we still found stuff happening. Now, they weren't victims because these customers had trusted Alert Logic with their detection and response. And the fact that it was managed means we found the breach before data was exfilled, before ransomware was deployed. So again, right, I'm not saying we're going to prevent everything, because I think anybody that stands up in front of you and says that is lying. They're not. But what we can do is try to minimize the impact of it when it happens. What is your patching hygiene? We talked about staffing constraints. We talked about latency. Some of the larger organizations I've worked with in the past, they've got a QA process for rolling in patches. And sometimes that QA process can last a month. Well, guess what? You're exposed for that entire month because nobody can just unhook their mission critical systems while that patch is being tested. We talk about this online storefronts. Between Black Friday and the day that they can ship stuff out to make it for Christmas, I don't care what's going on, those systems aren't coming down. Right? I don't care, and think about a false positive where a developer changed some of the SQL code. The security tools look at that as a SQL injection and just halt everything. I mean, that is a nightmare scenario waiting to happen, which goes back to my point why a lot of these systems have their tools in audit only mode. Right? I'm not going to impact it, but if I forensically have to go back and figure out where it happened, I can do that. But again, how many have a CMDB in place? These are all like best practice things where someone can sit on their ivory tower and tell you need to go do it. But then when your CIO asks, okay, well, what's the ROI on this? And now you're starting to talk about things that sound a lot like insurance. They end up falling below the line. So there's an impact to drift, and it is what it is. How do we mitigate it? Now, dwell time. This one's really ugly. So all the statistics out there saying if you don't catch it, right when it happens, These things can lay dormant. They can put in backdoors. They can start moving through your environment, looking for privileged assets, looking for privileged users. I mean, all of this stuff happens, right? So, what are we trying to do? We are trying to catch it before it causes damage if we can't prevent it in the first place, right? And again, it's just more statistics, but it drives home the point that this is what we're talking about. Average time to detect a successful breach, 56 days. That's almost 2 months while something's going on. And by the way, it just keeps getting worse, right? Because not only has the breach happened, but it's traversing through the network, it's finding the right system, it's putting in backdoors, it's dropping ransomware. And I mean, there's been local and state governments, local governments. This isn't like they're only after the big guys. They're after anybody who they think they can pay them. Leo called it out. It's big business. I mean, these guys have business plans on how they're going to make money, and it's all through nefarious means. So, how can we reduce drift and dwell? Let's look at it from an alert logic standpoint, right? Look at all the things we're going to need to do. And we addressed it earlier around collecting, analyzing, informing. But again, what are some of the steps that we do in the background, right? We're analyzing things, we're validating things, we're rooting out the false positives, we're doing threat hunts where it makes sense to do threat hunts, we're laying down telemetry signatures. We're finding all of the different ways where we can capture this activity. And mind you, when we lay down telemetry signatures, not all of these things fire. When a lot of these things fire, they're false positives. But when you correlate them with the next 3 incidents that happen, they cease to become false positives. But again, we're doing all of that on your behalf. None of this stuff is behind a wall. You have access to the console. You can go pull up reports. You can see real-time dashboards of what's going on, both from a vulnerability perspective, from an incident perspective, and across all of your estates, whether that's on-prem, whether that's Azure, whether that's AWS. And then again, right, we have a 15-minute SLA. We're going to let you know when there's a higher critical, and then you'll be able to do something about it, right? The idea is finding it quickly. And all of this stuff kind of buckets into respond, but it's about managing things, it's about detecting it, it's about responding to it. And again, a difference between us and other people that do MDR is this focus on a pre-breach and post-breach environment. And again, the house analogy is the best, right? Lock your doors, close your windows. If your screen door, if your back door is put on the wrong way, like a configuration problem, we can address that as well. And if all of that doesn't work, that's why we've got the motion sensor and the door alarms and all that stuff in your house. Because the sooner the alarm goes off and intruders come in the door, they're going to run. And that's the idea behind focusing both pre-breach and post-breach. That's really the idea here. And again, it's comprehensive, soup to nuts. And that's the part where we're trying to not replicate the things that you were doing, but if you're resource constrained and you can't do it yourself, you have to know that you're working with a capable partner that is able to do the things that you would do yourself in a manner that you would do yourself, and have the confidence that it's going to be done in the right way. We've got these threat intelligence teams, a slew of PhDs. Between them and our SOC, we've got 150 people that we actually bring through. We've got our own training program where we achieve double the industry standard of longevity in our SOC, because we bring in people, we train them up, we give them career development opportunities through different pieces. In some cases, they can move to threat intelligence, but they have the appropriate desire and an amount of ability. But again, our threat intel teams, what are they doing? It's about early warning, finding it faster, looking deeper, and looking across. I mean, that's why we do what we do. And that's why, that's why we have great partners, because they see the value in what we're bringing to the table, different than what they can do themselves. and combining it with their skills and capabilities, delivering amazing outcomes for clients. And again, we've got the threat intel pieces here, and we deliver that. And again, focused expertise. What are we doing? We've got at least 4 analytics modules, whether we're talking about, leveraging machine learning to really filter out a lot of the noise, false positives, allow better correlations, allow comparisons with peers, allow comparisons over time. We've got our threat researchers out there doing threat hunts, laying down all the traps, being able to take the information from that. So, a lot of this is the team that's doing the threat research works in the same company as the team that's doing the last mile from a managed perspective, and is also the same team that's developing a lot of the tooling. So you've got all of these pieces working together to deliver these outcomes. And that's really what we talk about. It's the technology, it's the intelligence, and it's the expertise. And if you want a little bit more around what it is that we're doing, so I'm here talking about what AlertLogic does. If you want to learn about what we've done more recently or our pace of innovation, I encourage you to check out alertlogic.com/innovation. And what you're going to see is you're going to see these 3 areas broken down: coverage everywhere, simplified experience, and continuous innovation. It's how we prioritize our roadmap investments. And it's a little bit more under the covers, but you can see the rate at which things are getting added, whether it is coverage, whether it is making, not keeping it in a black box, but making it easier for everyone to use. And just this cycle of analytics integration, automation, orchestration. I mean, all of these things that allow bigger, better, faster. I mean, that's really the underpinnings to a lot of these things. And I'm going to step through a couple of other pieces quickly before I turn it back over. But, when you work with us, there's universal benefits, right? It doesn't matter how you work with us, how you transact with us. We're going to help you with the audits. There's audit ready reporting. Again, going back to compliance as the most uncool thing to talk about, but something that's top of mind for everyone. There's a full hand-holding implementation. Once you become a customer, there's a customer success manager that delivers more of that white glove service. Again, the platform has been updated with a clean user experience with dashboards that are super easy to use. And really one of the focuses of our 2020 work was building into third-party integrations. So whether it's log ingest or being able to communicate with existing ITSM tools, a lot of that capability has been added. And I talk about coverage. It really is we're where you work, because if we're not, what value can we truly bring to you? And it's about this deep and broad coverage that's most critical. And I'm gonna sort of go through this. You will have access to it, but really it's this combination of coverage, the platform again that we already talked about, the collect, analyze, enrich, report, notify. That process. Understand that we're doing this at the same time. And the really cool part from an expertise standpoint is not only are we solving problems for individual customers, but really what we're doing is we're taking this and we like to call it community defense. I'll give you an example. Over the Christmas holidays, which was an awesome one this year, we had an emerging threat process kickoff for remote code execution. And the reason it didn't make the news is because it was a little bit obscure, but we found out 21 of our customers were running this software that had the exploit. And it was actively being exploited by the hacker community. And really what we found it actively being exploited on 3 of those customers. Well, once we saw it, once we had the scan data, we knew they were running exposed versions of the software. We proactively reached out to them. Hey guys, even though you haven't seen an active exploit right now, you're running code that is actively being exploited by bad actors. And we've seen it in our environment. Now we've laid down all the telemetry signatures. We know that if it happens to you, we will catch it before it causes damage. But heads up, you really need to start taking this action right now. And the gratitude you get from customers who get an unsolicited knock on the door from one of their security vendors saying, "Hey guys, here's a little something you need to get going here." Um, it's pretty impressive, just the gratitude that they have when an event like that happens, and it's not something they thought they signed up for. And that, it's really what I want to leave you with, right? We operate where you are, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's Azure AWS, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in all three. I mean, the more and more we're seeing is IT organizations become more sophisticated. They're starting to put the right workload in the right cloud, which is a it's a pretty interesting concept. If you go back in the day, there was a reason for a 4-socket server, there was a reason for a 2-socket server, there was a reason for a pizza box, right? Take all of that same stuff and move it to the cloud. And maybe they want to run Microsoft workloads in a Microsoft cloud in Azure. Maybe they want to run their test and dev environments in AWS. But the idea here is we're looking where you are, viewed through a single pane of glass. We're watching so you don't have to. I mean, that's really, that's the gist there. And our capabilities are simplifying the tech stack. It's not about adding more vendors. It's what can you replace? What can you look at? How can you simplify? So really, and this is our tech, our experts, our research, and I would add our partners. And really that's your advantage. That's really why we are partnering, because a lot of times the services that you can get through a CTG are going to help you get to where you want to go. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over, but I want to thank you for listening. And if you guys have any questions, happy to help you there.
Awesome. Thanks, Bharat. I appreciate that. I think a lot of the things that you brought up throughout, and I know that Leo's going to take us through a recap and a closeout, but I think resonate with a lot of us. And I see a lot of familiar faces as far as attendees out there. So I know that we're in different journeys or different parts of the journey with various customers or clients that we have today. But as far as like tools, we all have tools. Are you looking at them? Are they actually doing, are you next generation IPS? That's great. Is it in audit mode, like Bharat said, or is it taking action? Are we scared for it to take action, right? Because it's technology and it's automated. The environments are dynamic. I think, one of the key points that Bharat brought up, security is dynamic. For those folks that are doing point in time security assessments of their environment, it's a point in time assessment, right? So does it bring value to have a solution that is continually in real time looking at your environment and making these proactive recommendations? Have you had anybody come to you in the past say, hey, listen, if you change the way Apache broadcasts, maybe they're not going to know how to attack it because they don't know it's Apache. So that value and experience that a solution like Alert Logic brings to the table is huge. And we at Converged, I think we recognize that, right? And we want to bring the overall best solutions to market for our customers. A lot of you out there know about what we call Sys 360 ongoing support. And really, one of the primary differentiators of Assist 360, it's a co-managed offering, right? So, unlike traditional managed service providers that are out there where they offer you various solutions, with Converged Assist 360, we're also giving you access to the environment. So you heard Bharat mention around a portal, right? So having access to the portal along with us. So if you want to get into the weeds and start digging into certain aspects, great, you have access to do so. And that holds true across our various offerings. So as you can see, we have a slew of offerings that are available. We're going to be focusing on managed detection and response as part of today's conversation. But I wanted to give a fair mention because it was brought up a few times around managed security, patch management, right? So patching your environment. How many times have we heard that, oh, if you just had the latest patch, you probably, even though you maybe had some sort of hole in your environment, that system wouldn't have been vulnerable, right? How impactful is your environment for some sort of compromise? If you're patched, maybe somebody made it in, maybe they can't affect it because it has the latest patches. So patch management programs are definitely key. If you don't have a patch management solution in place today, We offer a managed patch management solution, which is we offer to our customers. We can add it as a standalone. We can add it to an existing agreement. Definitely reach out to your account executive for further information, and we can set up a call and have those conversations in more in depth. But the topic of conversation today is going to be around managed detection and response from an Assist 360 perspective. So really looking and growing on our proven track record that we have with Assist 360 and leveraging the partnership that we have with AlertLogic and their world-class MDR solution, really bringing the two together and providing a best-in-class solution from an ongoing support perspective to our customers is definitely key, and really the reason why we chose AlertLogic. I think for those of, even before we offer this solution, for those customers or clients that are on the call that have interacted with us for for a long time, you know, anytime you were talking about SOC, anything, incident security, security event monitoring, or anything, as we started to get into that realm, AlertLogic was alongside, and we went shoulder to shoulder with them. So now we're happy to offer this as part of our ongoing support solution, Assist 360, and we formalized this solution for you folks. So Leo brought up around, you know, it's a scary place out there, right? So having to, I guess, be faced with scenarios where as we grow our environments, we consume more cloud assets, it becomes much more of a broader attack service. The cost, right? So cost of building out a SecOps team, I think Bharat touched on it, right? So a pet, was it a pet healthcare plan or something like that? These folks are moving on. So to have an offering where it's encompassed in one solution to provide not only the great aspects of AlertLogic that they bring to the table that were spoken about earlier, but also augmented with their Assist 360 definitely brings you a fully rounded solution. So Bharat showed on various slides around the 24/7 threat detection, 15-minute triage capabilities, but augmenting that with the Assist 360 and our team in order to provide a fully rounded solution around what we call our 3 service elements: planning and deployment, configuration, and Assist 360, provide a well-rounded solution. So when we look at Converged and what we bring to the table on top of the benefits that AlertLogic brings, we want to provide that white glove service, right? So we want to walk you through. So those folks that aren't able to provide the, you know, have the investments in a SecOps team, they want to outsource those type of capabilities to a company that focuses in that. But at the same time, they may not have the bandwidth internally to really bring a solution like that on board. We're here to help. So understanding how AlertLogic fits into your environment, understanding the various points that we may be wanting to look to put virtual appliances part of our AlertLogic solution in order to capture and see and get that visibility into your environment. Understanding the various devices that we want to capture that information from, whether it be agent deployment, stuff like that, and really planning that out together. And I think a lot of times, even with existing customers, coming to the table, understanding your environment already and adding this on makes that conversation even that much more easy. In addition to that, not having to worry about you personally having to go out and deploy the solution, right? Whether it be a physical appliance installing it or a virtual appliance standing up that virtual appliance within your environment. Converge takes all that responsibility away from you and is delivering that as part of our overall solution. Also, you have existing assets in your environment. So Bharat mentioned earlier around various tools, firewall tools, endpoint protection, whatever it may be, network devices. We want to get whatever information that we have today or insights that we have today also captured, right? So getting those logs, those systems configured in order to funnel information into the solution and having that done as part of the service is included. Third-party integration. So you saw some slides regarding capabilities to integrate with third parties, right? And to expand that visibility. So sifting through the various aspects of your environment, understanding those third-party solutions that we could potentially integrate with, and then facilitating those integrations on your behalf is part of the engagement that we'd be looking to facilitate on your behalf. And then just kind of going through the tuning process. So although AlertLogic kind of does this as part of their offering, but working with them and to customizing that experience so that we have the best, we kind of sift out a lot of the false positives. But you heard Bharat mention it earlier. False positives may not be false depending upon the scenario, but having them look at that and sifting through and making sure that we streamline that based on the insights that we have regarding your environment is key. And then last but not least, and this is key, when we look at AlertLogic and the capabilities that they bring as far as sifting through from a security operations center and then making those recommendations, whether it's pre or post event. The reality is they're reaching out and then making recommendations, whether it be a change to the environment, a change to a firewall policy, a change to maybe a server because it needs to have a patch, whatever that recommendation may be. AlertLogic, in conjunction and working with Converged Technology Group, will look to implement that change on your behalf. All right. So not only receiving the recommendation, but also taking that recommendation and implementing it on your behalf to kind of round out the offering is definitely what we've seen from our customers, our existing customers that have it, a benefit, right? Because if somebody's reaching out to you, they're providing that insight, that's great. And that's a capability of AlertLogic on its own, but maybe you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the additional time to be taking that on. You're looking for an all-in-one solution where we're not only providing the insight and recommendation, but also taking the action. Provides a best-in-class, fully rounded solution. And then in addition to that, as your environment I mentioned earlier is dynamic, right? Constantly changing, providing those changes and insights and making sure that all teams, such as Converged Technology Group, Sys 360 team, in addition to the Logic team, are on the same page, understand what those changes are, how that impacts your security environment, definitely comes into play. And last but not least, yeah, it was mentioned, but vulnerability, right, scanning. Right, so there's compliance reports, there's vulnerability scanning. So building out and scheduling that with you, I'm sure that you have a tool that's in place where you can do real-time scans is something that's going to probably be of interest, right? And so working through that, creating those scans, making sure that you have the appropriate reports that you're looking for, in addition to providing you the various access levels that you're looking for from a portal perspective, we have rolled into the overall solution. So any of you out there that find this interesting, want to hear a little bit more about it, I would definitely ask you to touch base with your account manager. Leo's going to have a call to action later on, but we're definitely here to help out. I'm excited about this partnership. It's a continued partnership with the more recent development around a formalized offering. And then we'll look to have those further conversations with you. And I appreciate the partnership, and folks, I appreciate the faces and names that I see out there. You taking the time today to kind of listen to the story, and maybe this would be the beginning of an add-on or an additional offering to your existing agreement that you may have, or maybe it's a new relationship that we may be looking to build. So I look to have that conversation with you, and I hope you guys have a great day. So Leo, with that being said, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
All right, fantastic. So Scott, thank you very much, Bharat. Fantastic. A lot of information there. We have a couple minutes for me to wrap up, so I'm going to kind of go a little bit of rapid fire succession. I do see one or two questions, which I'll attempt to get to as well. But again, we have existing customers on here, so some familiar faces and names, folks that are checking us out for the first time. So one or two quick notes on Converged Technology Group and a next step and an offer for the folks that are here. For those that know us, we've been around for over 15 plus years. For folks meeting us for the first time, again, it's a pretty long track record of engagement with mid-market commercial, small enterprise customers. Full lifecycle service company, design, implementation, ongoing support. And although not a perfect company, pretty darn good. We do, we have a proven track record and ability to deliver, take an awful lot of pride in the due diligence we do up front, understanding customer expectations. We feel that we represent a world-class implementation team, and we are always inspired to fulfill on our promise.